my trippy hippies, good morning. It is Tammy coming to you live today, right on time. This is a big one today, so I didn't want to be late. I didn't want to have any excuses as to why we couldn't show up for this one. I'm hoping that we get some folks on here. And as you do jump on here today, do what it says scrolling across the bottom, which is say hello, tell us where you're watching from, and give us a hello, how you're doing, all of that. This is way more fun with friends. It's been a big energy week for me, and I've got a good message. This was ready yesterday. I've been working on it. It's a two. How many pages does it take to get to the end, right? This is a pretty. I've got graphics. I've got things to follow along with today, and I'm hoping that you will join in. Like I said, this is way more. And the internet, I know it's going to be good whenever the internet wants to be really weird, wonky, because there's nothing else connected to this. And whenever I start acting like a weirdo with this good internet, I know that somebody doesn't want you to see what I have to say today. So I'm trying to get my technology this long. Yay, I'm so glad you joined us today. Today's Sunday sermon is called Why Not Me? Why Not You? Right? Long time no see from Victoria. So glad to see you, Kristen. The Didions instead of the Gideons, right? So I want everybody to jump on today. Do me a favor, tag a friend, say hello, do all the things below. The more you interact with this live video, the more opportunities that it has to be seen by everybody. I'm being hidden in the algorithm. I am only live in 2 places today. This is where I'm going to be going live from now on, which is the TAMunity on, if it's about my woo-woo and all of this, it will be on my personal page because it's my personal belief, and it will be on my personal YouTube channel, the TAMunity. So it's the only 2 places I'll be going live with this information. Sunday sermons, this is where they're housed. This is where they're going to be. Watching from Pinellas Park, Florida. I love that so much. It's a nice day here in Virginia. It's going to be a little stormy later, but it's beautiful outside. It's very nice. Spring is sprunging, right? And then if I have anything to talk about live with like business stuff, drawings, giveaways, they will be in the respective business page. That way we keep things kind of in their own little spaces and boxes, right? So we're going to get a few folks on here this morning. We always start kind of by finding our center and with a little breath work. We're going to do a little deep breathing exercise to get started. So if you're tuning in right now, make sure you're comfortable. Make sure you've got something to drink. Maybe get your headphones in, or better yet, let the folks in the room watch or listen with you, because this is about all of us, and I think it's an important message today. And I hope that you will stick around and for it, whether you're watching this now, which is Sunday morning at 10:34 a.m., March 16th, the day before St. Patty's Day, or if it is later on down the road, whenever this message is supposed to find you. I promise you it will. God does not make mistakes, right? So as you're joining this morning, please jump on, get comfortable, give us a minute. Oh, I'm so glad Heather is here this morning, and Amanda, and so many familiar faces. That this is a big message. This is really me standing for something. This is really me I have proclaimed a religion. I have proclaimed something that I've been working in and working on myself with. And it's about, honestly, about every single one of us recognizing how divine we truly are. Thank you for joining Corinne. Corinne came last Saturday to our sister circle at my house, where I joined. I had manifested that 5 women would join our circle, and I made the 5th. So I would have been 6, but 5 women joined. We had Melissa and Sarah and Corinne and Brittany and myself were all there. And I felt like we really were able to create a sacred space. We were able to have some breakthroughs. We were able to feel the energy that it feels when you are around like-minded people. And so I encourage each and every one of you to find your local, I said Melissa, Sarah, Brittany, Corinne, and myself. Yeah. So today we're going to start with just some breath work. I want to jump into this. We got some people on right now. Make sure you're tagging some folks in the comments. Go message somebody offline and say, hey, get your butt online. Come join the sermon. We're going to do a little breath work exercise. So super easy. If you're able to put your feet on the ground, Set up, put your feet on the ground, hands up in your palms so that you can receive, right? Yes. I'm going to encourage you to do that now. Get comfortable. We're going to just take a little breath. We're going to find our center. So let's begin, as we always do, by grounding ourselves in the present. We are here in this moment today. We're going to take a deep breath in through our noses. We're going to hold it for a moment, and then we're going to exhale. That's how we do it, okay? So we're going to take a deep breath in through our nose. Do it with me. Out through your mouth, right? In through your nose, hold it, out through your mouth. I want you to inhale deeply. I want you to take in love, take in wisdom, take in clarity. Hold it for a moment and exhale, releasing fear, tension, and distraction. So let's do that together. We're gonna inhale love, and we're gonna exhale fear. We're gonna do one more, and we're gonna inhale wisdom and exhale distraction and tension. And then we're going to settle into our breath. So I'm going to take a couple breaths with me. That's what we're doing this morning. Take some deep breaths in through your nose, inhaling the good shit, exhaling the bullshit. That's what I tell people all the time. So one more time. Breathe in peace. Hold it and let it go. Now that we've arrived in this space together, let's dive into today's message, okay? So, the topic of today's Sunday sermon is why not me? But more importantly, why not you? So this week, someone, if you've been following along with my, congratulations, Sarah. Sorry I missed you yesterday. The funk has been running through this building. And Corinne and Star, and we've all had this kind of crud. And yesterday, by the time I got done working here, I felt like somebody had beat me up, right? And so I went home and just did not want to get this to anybody. We're trying to keep all of our yuck to ourselves, right? But this week, if you've been following along, I've been telling you that God has been speaking to me, and I have been very steadfast in listening and telling you what I'm told to tell you. I am, and I'll talk about that later. I think that I may be allergic to something that I have to take every day because I was out of it and didn't take it last night, and now I don't feel like I felt. So I'm hoping that maybe we may have found a culprit of why I've been feeling so heavy. So if you've been following along, you know that I've been saying, like, God is speaking to me as clearly as you are hearing me speak to you today. And someone actually said to me this week, like, I'm open for discussion. I'm open for conversation. And someone said to me, what makes you so special? This is so special that God would speak to you. I was like, excuse me? Like, what? Why do you think that you are so special that God would speak to you? I think you're just crazy. And my answer is simple. My answer was simple, was not even like, I didn't even get offended by it. I said, why wouldn't God speak to me? But more importantly, this is where this sermon came from. Why do you think that God's not talking to you or wouldn't speak to you? That's the bigger question here, right? And somewhere along the way, we were taught that divine connection is reserved for the chosen few, right? It's just reserved for the chosen few, the prophets, the saints, the priests, the gurus, right? The gurus. That God is somehow outside of us. But today's message is to help you understand something, right? God is not exclusive. God is speaking all of the time to all of us, to every single person that's on this live, that's watching this now, that will watch this in the future, that may never see this. God is speaking all of the time to all of us. The only difference between me and this person that asked this question, or maybe some of you watching this that might be in doubt, is that some people are listening, I'm listening, and some people are not. So if you don't believe God's listening to you today, I'm hoping that after this message, you will find ways to start listening, start recognizing when God is speaking to you. And that is the goal of today's message, because we have been conditioned. We have been conditioned to believe that God is separate, distant, something outside of ourselves. But I'm here today to stand firm and remind you that today we are of God. We are already connected to God, and God is within us. So again, I'm going to ask you, why not me? But why not you? Right? Why not me? But really, why not you? Like, think about that, right? God speaks to all of us. God is in all of us, right? And so maybe the first thing we need to kind of do, and I say this, and I'm gonna preface this. We're going to talk about actual like biblical Quran, the Judaism, Hinduism. We're going to talk about all the major religions today. We're gonna use God as the word God versus universe, source, spirit. Whatever words you use, I respect and I honor those. I'm using God because God is kind of universal. Even the universe is God, right? It is the creator of all things. It is the ulti-maleficent, thing. And that no matter what, whether I'm not religious, I tell people I'm kind of come up with like a little sect that I might fit into. I'm spiritual, and that means that I commune with God. I recognize that God is within me, that God is within you, and that I recognize the divinity in that. A lot of times, like when I was first starting on this journey, the thing that resonated with me was namaste. And that was kind of, that means loosely translated in white girl terms, right? The divine in me sees the divine in you, and I recognize it. And therefore, I'm going to honor that God is within you. And by honoring you, I then honor myself because I also have God within me. And we're going to talk about how that all plays out later. But for right now, we're going to see who is God and what is God, right? So if we want to understand how God speaks to us, we have to first understand who God is, right? Maybe people, that's the first step. Like, I'm like, how do I break this down in this sermon? And this is kind of the outline that I got. So hopefully this is not too rudimentary, right? So we need to understand how God, we want to understand how God speaks to us. We have to understand who God is, right? The Bible describes God. I'm going to use the Bible first because most people are familiar with that. That I know, the majority of probably English-speaking Americans would recognize themselves as Christians. There are lots of people who are Jewish, Buddhist, Islamic, Muslim. There's Taoist. There's so many religions out there. I'm going to touch on all of them, but right now we're going to talk about God is defined as God in the Bible. Okay, and I know I lose people instantly talking about this kind of stuff. But God told me when he spoke to me, be steadfast in your message. And whether one person hears it or 100 people hear it, it's the message I've laid upon your heart. If you're going to listen, you have to be steadfast in the doing of, right? In the doing of what God asked. When God gives you a commandment or a testimony, you need to be able to give it. And, it was interesting because I had a conversation with Red last night about like this. He's one of those people's like, I think we don't agree exactly on how things rock, but I hear where you're coming from. But I said to him, I'm like, I know you think I'm crazy when I say that I hear God speak to me, because I talk about these things with him. And I was like, but that Red's father had a very bad accident where his leg was injured and he almost died laying in the wilderness in Green Bay waiting for help to come. And one of the most powerful testimonies I've ever heard about how he came back into finding God and being a religious man and being a pious man with the church and getting really involved in that was because of his testimony about how God came to him in nature and he knew, and just his testimony is very powerful. And I said, you believe your dad's testimony without even blinking an eye? He says, yeah. I was like, I'm telling you, my testimony is as true and as honest and as important to me as that one is to your dad and to your. He's like, okay, I hear you. So let's talk about what God is, right? So the Bible describes God in many ways, and we put them together, a very clear image emerges. So let's talk about it. So we're going to talk about the first one, right? What is God? God is love. 1 John 4:8. Whoever does not love God, because God is whoever does not love does not know God, because God is love. Not that God loves people, but God is love, right? God is love. In the first book of John, chapter 4, verse 8, whoever does not love does not know God, because God is love, right? So God is love. That's number one. Who and what is God, right? Number two, God is light, right? 1 John chapter 1, verse 5, God is light. In him, there is no darkness at all. So far, when we talk about what is God and who is God, God is love and God is light, right? And what do we say a lot? I'm sending love and light. I'm sending God, spirit, energy out to you, right? So God is love, God is light. Number 3, God is spirit. John 4, chapter 4, verse 24. God is spirit, and his worshipers must worship in the spirit and in truth. God is spirit, and his worshipers must worship in the spirit and in truth, right? Number 5. So God is truth, God is fire, right? God is a consuming fire. Hebrews 12:29. For our God is a consuming fire. And number 5, God is within you. Luke 17:21. The kingdom of God is within you. So therefore, right now, of a Christian belief, right? God is love, God is light, God is truth, God is a consuming fire, a burning ember inside of you, and God is the kingdom you are the kingdom, and God is within you. So God is seen within each of us. That is the Bible's description of God, right? Not my description of God. That is the Bible's description of God, right? Corinne says, I'm a nebulan, born from the stars, from the nebula, also known. Yes, we are all of God, right? We all need to listen, really listen. It sounds different for everyone, right? We all need to lift. Exactly, Heather. You're going to hear about that a little bit more, right? But right now we're talking about the fact that, let me take, sorry, I'm trying to get all the, I got lots of graphics today because I thought we need to see this to kind of move along, right? God is within you. God is each of us. Now that's how just Christian people have defined who God is. In Hinduism, God is called, and I don't say these words, I'm a country girl, I try to say this, please don't, I'm not trying to be, I'm trying, okay? God is also called Brahman, the eternal, all-encompassing divine presence that exists in all things. Brahman is formless, boundless, and manifests in different ways, much like the idea of God, right? God is everything. God is creating. Everything is of God or nothing is, right? Hinduism says everything is of God. In Islam, God is known as Allah, the most compassionate, the most merciful, existing beyond human limitation. Islam teaches in the Quran, this is the Quran 50:16, God is closer to us than our own jugular vein, right? Which means God is the blood that goes through our body. God is within us. We are of God, right? In Buddhism, the Buddhism does not personify God in the way that some traditions do. The teachings of Dharma remind us that the universe itself moves in divine wisdom, guiding us towards enlightenment, right? So in Buddhism, that's already, I feel like, a higher level of enlightenment. Like it recognizes that it's not a person. God is in everything, right? Everything, divine wisdom, the universe is guiding us towards enlightenment. God is the knowledge, the truth, the light. In Judaism, it's God is Insaf, Ein Sof. I don't know if I'm saying any of these words right. I apologize. I'm not trying to butcher them. The infinite, beyond comprehension, yet deeply personal. The Jewish faith teaches the divine presence. The Shekinah dwells within and among each of us, right? So again, it's kind of the same thing everywhere, right? We all kind of are of God, right? So let's talk about God is love for a second. Let's go back up here and talk about God is love. So God is love. Light reveals, it exposes, it brings truth into the open. And that's why so many people reject divine wisdom, because the truth is uncomfortable. But if you find yourself lost, ask yourself, right? Because God is light. God is love. I'm sorry, I'm in the wrong. Let's do God is light. So in the light, right? So if God is light, the light reveals, it exposes, it brings the truth into the open. And that's why so many people reject divine wisdom through God is light, because the truth is uncomfortable. But if you find yourself lost, ask, am I walking in the light or am I clinging to the shadows? Because God does not operate in illusion, only truth, right? So in talking about who God is and what God is, let's talk about why maybe you're not hearing God, because maybe you are not being godly as you need to be. Maybe you are, and I'm going to talk about what we talk about with that in a second too. But so when God is love, right? 1 John 4:8, whoever does not love does not know God, because God is love. Love is not just something God has. It is what God is. That means when we act in love, we are embodying God. And when we act in hate, in judgment, and in cruelty, we are turning away from God's presence. It is not that everything is of God, but whenever you do things that are not of or like, not light or not love or all these ugly things, that is you turning away from God. That is you basically denying the godliness inside of you, the holiness inside of you, the light, the love inside of yourself. It's very personal. It's not about hating. It is about you doing the act of not loving, about you being the light and not being the light. Let's talk about spirit, right? God is spirit. And his worshipers must worship in the spirit and in his truth. God is not a statue. God is not a building. A lot of people are not hearing this message today because they're sitting in a building, and that is fine. And I get that. If that's where you need to be to recognize your divinity, then go there and be there. But God is not a statue. God is not a building, and God is not confined to religion or rituals. God is everywhere. So many people who want to gatekeep why God's not speaking to me, like God's not talking to you. You're not Moses. You're not this person. You're not that person. I'm like, God speaks to everyone. The stories you hear about in the Bible were the courageous few people who recognized that God was speaking to them, and they listened and they did as he commanded. I promise you, there are a million more Noahs out there. There are a million more Moseses out there. There are a million more Josephs and Peters and Pauls. You just have to recognize your divinity and your connection to God so that you can then hear. And God speaks to every single one of us differently, right? Because my lived experience is not your lived experience. And that's why they say religion is such a personal walk, right? So God is not any of those things. Let's talk about God being a fire, right? God is a consuming fire. For our God is a consuming fire. Now, fire can be destructive, but it can also be cleansing, right? It burns away what no longer serves, and it purifies. If you are truly walking in alignment with God, be ready to let go of some things, right? So some of us are holding on to some things that we need to burn away, that need to be purified from us so that we can hear, that we can have our divine wisdom and our divine connection back. Because we're holding on to addiction or relationships or guilt or the things that are not of God. We're holding on, we're clinging on to those things, right? So hard. Because fire doesn't, we cling on to those things. Fire doesn't destroy what's real. It only burns away what was never meant to last. So if you are living in fear, right, that fear is not serving you. The things that are meant for you will stay no matter what you do, right? If it's meant for you and it's real, God's not going to take that away. It is those things that are not serving you that you need to get rid of, because it'll only burn away what was never meant to last. And I don't mean like a literal fire. I mean like, the soul's fire kind of thing. And then let's talk about God is within you, right? God is within you. The kingdom of God is within you. You don't have to search for God. You don't have to chase divinity. It's already inside of you. Already inside of you. So why wouldn't God speak to you? Why wouldn't God speak to you, right? And while we look to the Christian scripture, like I said, right, God is too big for one. We went through all the different religions, the Hindu, all of those things, right? So, but in every one of these traditions that we just talked about, whether it be one of the Buddhism, Judaism, Islam, Christianity, whatever it is, and every one of these traditions, the essence of God remains the same. Love, truth, wisdom, and the interconnectedness of everything. The interconnectedness of everything. Let's see, we got our comments over here, right? Yep, God is not confined to religion. Say it loud for the ones in the back. God is not confined to religion. God is everywhere. God, everything is of God or nothing is. And whenever you see things that are like, not like hatred and violence and war and greed and all those things, that is the turning away from God. That is of the flesh. That is not of God. Yep. Speaking does not always have to be words. Listen with all your senses. Exactly, right? God speaks to us in very different ways. And this goes into this, right? The vertical versus the horizontal approach to divinity. Why a lot of us, like, we understand what God is now. Like, who is God? What is God? right? So now that we know who he is and we can trust that God is love, truth, light, all those things, that even like most spiritual people truly walk in love. I want you to take a moment, just right now, sit in this space in that centered breath that you took. And I want you to look around and I want you to see who is embodying love and light and truth and godly behavior and who is not. Who has turned their away from God, right? So the reason why people can do hateful things in the name of religion is because I believe of this. Okay, there's a vertical, right, up and down, and horizontal, right, approach. There's an up and down approach and a horizontal approach to divinity. Most religions teachings focus on the vertical approach to God. And I've talked about this a little bit before. Climbing up to prove ourselves worthy, trying to reach something higher, right? That's the vertical approach, right? You're basically saying, if I do this, this, and this, I'm climbing the ladder to heaven. I love my neighbor, or like I went to church, I tithed, I attended the Sunday school. Everything, all these things are like ladder rings to climb up to heaven. And then there's the horizontal approach, which is this way, right? The horizontal approach. That means that we connect with God through each other, and we bring heaven to earth through how we love, how we serve, how we treat the people around us. And this is, again, my personal, the TAMU, the church of the first community church of Facebook or some bullshit, right? You do not reach God by climbing, right? You reach God by living in your divine truth. And my divine truth is completely different from Heather Johns' divine, or Corinne's, or Elizabeth Clark, or Sarah, or Kristen, right? My divine truth is different than every single one of theirs. And every single one of theirs is different from you. Because God did not put you on a conference call when he calls in and tells you what your purpose is. You are of God. Your life, your lived life experience is your lived life experience. And that is you. So let's talk now about where I found myself kind of, where did I find myself kind of relating to a religion sect, and where I kind of feel that I'm exploring and diving into and seeing if this is a fit for me to kind of find my place. Has anybody ever heard of, and I can't, it's so funny, I've been talking about this for a while, and I've really been, I was calling them something completely different last week, because I don't say, yep, here it is. Religion is created by man and is imperfect. True spirituality becomes from your heart. That's 100%. We're leaving that up there for a minute. The Gnostic perspective and the Christ consciousness. And this is where I'm coming out today. I'm coming out today and saying this is where I align. If someone asked me to explain like my walk through this planet, this is kind of where I lie. The Gnostics were a diverse group of early spiritual seekers and a religious movement. And I believe in the religious part of it, like, the grouping up and like having one thought. I feel like it's a lot more about each person having their own individuality. But I believe that if I was alive in this time and you kind of got to team up, these are who I would team up with, okay? This is my Power Ranger group. If we're going to have to pick a Power Ranger group. The Gnostics were a diverse group of early spiritual seekers and a religious movement that emerged primarily in the 1st and 2nd centuries AD. They also call that CA, which is Common Era, if you're not someone who believes in like the actual birth and death and resurrection of Christ. If it's more of a idea than it is a true thing as far as historically. They are now putting in a Common Era and something else versus AD, but I'm going to go AD for the sake of this conversation. It's around the same time as early Christianity, right? So that's whenever all these kind of religious these have not been things been around. If you want to look at like old world religions, go to like the Dead Sea Scrolls and the Dead Sea Scrolls, the Sumerian tablets with the Anunnaki, the old Sumeria. You're going to see there's a lot of stuff out there to dive through. I believe in going to what I call core documents, or to the source. I don't need to like let someone help form my opinion for me. I want to like read through it and then make my decision based on fact, not somebody else's opinion. So whenever I talk about this stuff, I encourage you to go out and like stop scrolling on TikTok. Get off of it. I'm telling you right now, get off of TikTok, get off of Reels. Go do micro learning. Go find a topic and go take a night and just learn about that. Go down the rabbit hole. You can do it virtually. You can search out the information. Like go look for like the Dead Sea Scrolls, like what the text actually says. It's fairly interesting if you really get into it. Not go down the rabbit hole of YouTube sometimes, and there's bias-based Googling you can do. But I'm going to encourage you, if something interests you or you're more concerned about something, they want you being on that and getting lost in that. That is like an addiction. That is something that takes you away from God. So find something to bring you back. Okay. People say, "You don't do fun all the time." I'm like, I am actually doing way more than you think I am on my phone. I am not just sitting there looking at dumb stuff. But it's not all I do. I do get those videos that I send you. But the term Gnosticism, right, comes from the Greek word gnosis. I'm going to talk about that. Good question. Really good question, right? So if you look at like the language, I was an English major. So when I look at things like disease, that comes from the Latin dis-ease in your body. So if you look at what words are and you look at the definition of them, by definition, the Greek word for gnosis means knowledge. But not just intellectual knowledge. Gnosis refers to inner divine knowledge, a deep personal understanding of spiritual truth, right? So the core beliefs of Gnosticism is that there's divine knowledge over blind faith. Gnostics believe that salvation came through personal mystical knowledge, gnosis, of the divine, rather than through faith alone or adherence to religious institutions. Faith alone or adherence to religious institutions. And so, my husband's coming up here, needs to get let in, and I'm trying to make that happen for him. So we're going to tell him to come to this other door, give me until after 10:30. Sorry, y'all. So, and we will get to what the differences are between agnostic and Gnostics in just a second. So, number one, Gnosticism believes that there's a divine knowledge over blind faith. So they believe that salvation comes through personal, mystical knowledge of the divine rather than through faith alone or adherence to religion institutions. Number two, they believe God is beyond our material world. And this is where I feel very connected to that. Sorry. Sorry, y'all. I got all sidetracked now. Okay. God is beyond the material world. Many Gnostics saw the physical world as a flawed or even deception, or even a deception created by a lesser, imperfect God called the demiurge. The true divinity, in their view, existed beyond the material world. So they don't believe that the physical world we're in now is flawed and it's a deception, right? And we are trapped in these bodies, holding our souls, right, in this place. And the more we turn away from the things of the world, the more we can turn into our enlightenment and kind of move up, right? So number three, this is the important part, right? Christ or Jesus as a revealer. And instead of viewing Jesus solely as a savior who died for our sins, the Gnostics believe Jesus came to awaken people to their own divine nature. If you look at the teachings of Jesus in the Bible, if you follow the teachings of Jesus, it is a beautiful thing. It is a beautiful thing. It's when it gets twisted in the greed and the corruption of the world and people's, wanting to utilize that for their own benefit and their own power. So the Gnostics believe that Jesus came to awaken people to their own divine nature, to remind them that they were of God and that their souls were trapped in a material illusion. right? Your soul is just trapped in this material illusion. And the closer, and every time we reincarnate into these bodies, into different bodies, we're able to start healing that karmic energy. We're able to fulfill soul contracts, and the more we do that, the closer we become to recognizing our own divinity and that we are of light, right? And that's how you reach enlightenment. And so the divine spark in humanity, they taught that a piece of the divine, a spark of God, exists in every person, and that the goal of life is to awaken to this truth. So the entire goal of being on this human plane. So Heather says, maybe too much for some, but my spiritual body has traveled to amazing places. My physical body is stuck in this imperfect world to learn. Yes. So our goal in these incarnations is basically to spark our God gene, basically, and to recognize that our goal is to awaken to our divine divinity and our divine truth. And when we do, we can start moving up the plane. So why were they controversial? The Gnostics challenged the early Christians' church authority by teaching that salvation did not come through priests, churches, or dogma, but through direct personal experience with God. Right? That's how you hear God. That's why God can speak. You have to have that deep personal relationship. And do you not think that people who want to have power over you will not take away that you can't speak to God yourself? Like, you can't even ask the divine for intervention on your behalf. You have to come to me. And you have to understand how history is at that time, right? These people needed somewhere to live and money, and you had to pay. And this is where the church started really going askew right after Jesus came to say, hey, you don't need to be a Jew, go to a Jewish temple and pay these things and do these things here. And Jesus came and said these things, it was teaching and talking about treating your neighbor with kindness and going to the sinners and not just sitting in your ivory towers. And what do they say? It is easier for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter the kingdom of heaven. Because you're still going to hold on to greed and monetary things and all of that. So you're never going to enlighten to the place where your soul is allowed to go to heaven. It's not saying that you don't maybe live as a good person. I'm not saying you're going to go to hell, but you're going to keep incarnating into a different version until you recognize. And sometimes it will feel like hell because your next incarnation may be dealing with the karma from the one before, right? Does this all make sense? Is this making sense? Right? And it's controversial. It's big news, right? But God says you have to say the words out loud. Like, that's part of your calling. I'm going to think before I must have lived a life where I did not listen to my calling from God. And, I did the thing that I shouldn't have done, is how I feel about it. Yes, they're built quite differently, right? Because they need to have power and control. Many Gnostic texts, if you've heard these things, they were removed from the Bible at the Antioch. I think it was Antioch where do they do like where they put the Bible, they came together and figured out what was going in the Bible and all that stuff. They kind of made all the religions right there. I think it was Antioch or Pentecost. I can't remember. I used to be into church and know all the things. I don't know it anymore. Yes. Give to Caesar what is Caesar's. Right? Give to Caesar's what is Caesar's. Like, it doesn't matter if you pay your taxes. Pay the taxes. That's it. That's money. That's not of God. Right? Many Gnostic texts, like the Gospel of Thomas and the Gospel of Mary Magdalene, were later labeled as a heresy and excluded from the official Christian canon because it didn't fit their agenda, right? Their agenda. I'm going to take this. I got banners everywhere that don't belong where they need to be up. They're going to pull that banner down. I'm going to hide that. We're going to go down here to, so we're going to do this. Okay. I'm going to get ready to do this in just a second here. Okay. So rather controversial. So by the 4th century, the rise of Orthodox Christianity, especially after the Emperor Constantine's conversion, led to the suppression of the Gnostics' writings and teachings. Even though Gnostic groups faded away from history, their ideas were never fully disappeared. Today, their teachings resonate with those who seek spiritual enlightenment outside of organized religion. emphasizing inner wisdom, direct divine connection, and personal transformation. Many of the same things that we talk about right here, right? Many of the same things that we talk about right here. I was like, oh, I didn't realize I had a Gnostic church. So Gnosticism reminds us that we are already of God. Our journey is about remembering, not earning our divine connection. It's about remembering and not earning our divine connection. The Gnostics understood that salvation was not about waiting for a Messiah, right? It's not about waiting for the return of Jesus. It's not about that. It was about awakening to your divine knowledge. I believe in the return of Christ. I believe in the return of Jesus as our I believe in that this way, okay? And here's where I have a lot of anxiety about just standing on something, because I've always feel like everybody has their own walk. Everybody has their own thing. I had divine wisdom that we have to recognize that we're all of God, and we don't all have to. But here's the truth of the matter. Those of us that do are going to reach that enlightenment, and we're gonna have our perception of heaven a lot sooner. So at least I'm going to give the information. If you want to utilize it, you can. So here's where I am kind of in a difference, and what I kind of got. And I've told you all this before. I believe the return of Christ is a shift in consciousness. When we aligned our mind, our body, and our soul, we awakened to our divinity. That is why my original business that I came out with was the Hometown Hippie, because we know that the endocannabinoid system, which is naturally found in your body, right, allows you to be able to get into homeostasis, which is an ability to have all that lined up. And I don't believe that, like, you know, I don't truly believe that if everybody just smokes some weed and like did a meditation, we could all see that. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that when we talk about how to listen to God, about that's how I was able to quiet the meat suit, how I was able to turn away from those things of the world by getting in a line and helping myself by getting off of prescription medication, by taking out a lot of the things that I didn't need that were not of God, is how I felt. They were turned away. I turned towards God versus away from God. And while I was using big pharma and all that, I felt like I was very much in contradiction too. So this is how I think about it. And I was able to finally get be able to type it out, make it make sense. Think of the Holy Trinity. The Father is the mind, divine wisdom. The Son, the body of action. And the Holy Spirit is the soul and the energy and connection, right? When these three things are in harmony, we can reach our enlightenment. And that is the second coming. Not a man descending from the clouds, but a mass awakening in divine truth. And those things, every time that shift starts to happen, and we have a greater amount of people on the planet, and I think the internet's been a great way to bring community and togetherness and people together. And if you notice what's been happening lately, even within our community, there's been a separation of. I was hiding out. Everybody was hiding out, getting their energy right, all of that. And look at what happened. Just in that shift, we were doing earth healing meditations. We were connecting. We were doing all these things together. And the outside energy got so big that it hurt us. And every time this awakening, the shift happens, this consciousness starts happening, the things the things that are not of God get louder, and the darkness and the greed and the hate and the discontent gets louder. And when I talk about the power of one and us having to go out every day, we have to do that. Like, to be able to fight the darkness, the enlightenment of the planet, and being able to hold our space to do that, right? Versus one or two people being able to enlighten. We were moving into places where soul circles and meditation groups, we were connecting, and we were putting that good energy out, and we were holding the light. We were holding the light, and that's what God said to me. It is not our job to fuel the fire. It is energy workers and spiritual folks. It is our responsibility to hold the light. And that's what we have to start doing again. And that's the call to action today, is to listen and to hold the light. Now, Kristen asked, what is the difference between Gnostics and agnostics, right? The Gnostics, gnosis, meaning what we told you, what we believe. Agnostics, from the Greek meaning without, right? Ag, Gnostic. It means without a gnosis, without a knowledge. So that means that they do not believe that any kind of divine existence of it. So it's the opposite of. They believe that it's more of an meaning that they focus on what they can and cannot be known without any kind of I don't know, any kind of definitive claim about existing of a higher power. Like maybe there is, maybe there isn't. I don't believe in it. I'm going to believe in what I can see right here. I don't need to like have a deep knowing of spirituality. I'm going to reject that. So it's kind of like nope. I don't want knowledge. Like I don't want to know about it. I don't want to feel about it. So the Gnostics claim to have seen or have seek knowledge of the divine. Agnostics claim that that knowledge is uncertain or unattainable. So if you want any more information, I'll be glad to give you some more stuff on that, Kristen. So that's what the difference is between those. So think of the Holy Trinity, right? The Father is your mind, your Son, and when you get all those things kind of in alignment, we can do that, right? So everything is of God or nothing is, right? I say that all the time. Now that some of you may be wondering, if everything is of God, then what about all the war, hate, destruction? How can that be of God? That's the question that I ask. And I took it to God myself. I'm sitting in prayers like, God, explain to me how this is happening. The answer I received, this is what I wrote from my journal. I just moved it over here. Yes, everything is of God, but some things exist to show us what we do not want to be. Some things happen to wake us up, to shift our consciousness, to force us to choose. You cannot have the light without the dark. You cannot recognize the truth until you have seen the lie. This is a time of reckoning. A time where everything false is being revealed, a time where systems must collapse so they can be rebuilt. And yes, it will be painful, but understand. Things are happening for us, not to us. And this is not the end, it is the transformation. And that is a direct quote from my journal onto this Sunday sermon that was clear as you hearing me talk to you. I was writing as God was speaking. And I channeled that in. And so if you want me to repeat that again, I will. Everything is of God, but some things exist to show us what we do not want to be. Some things happen to wake us up, to shift our consciousness, to force us to choose. You cannot have the light without the darkness. You cannot recognize the truth until you have seen the lie. And this is a time of reckoning, a time where everything false is being revealed, a time where systems must collapse so they can be rebuilt. And yes, it is painful, but understand. Things are happening for us, not to us. This is not the end. It is the transformation. What is happening today reminds me of the Never-Ending Story. Anybody watch that movie, The Never-Ending Story? I missed the comments, so I'm going to go ahead and check those out. We've been pretty on time. Oh my gosh, so much. Okay. Heather says, I'm so with you. I believe the next coming of Christ is not literal, but a coming together of our consciousness. Yes. What is Corinne says, perhaps return of Jesus' army, but yep. Exactly what we're talking about. Jesus never left. Exactly. Girl, you're not wrong. Everybody, that's exactly it, right? Because humankind was free will. And so yeah, you're good. I use strong words all the time. What we resist persists, right? So the analogy that I got, because I need to like have some visuals sometimes, and sometimes I'm a TV and movie watcher, and God will speak to me through that. Like I used to hear Sunday sermons would come from a Saturday night or a Friday night TV show. I would hear a line of the week. Next week on Sunday night, I hear a line, and all week long that would be the lesson. And I started recognizing that you have to listen to God the way, and this is what I talk about, right? What is happening today reminds me of the Never-Ending Story, how the darkness spreads across the land, consuming everything. And that is how it feels right now. I think it does. Anybody else going to get a hallelujah, amen, if that's how it feels right now? Like we're in the Never-Ending Story and the darkness is coming and it's just spreading across the land, bringing fear and misery and all the things all the time. Anybody else going to get a hallelujah, amen on that? Can I get a hallelujah, amen? But what defeats the darkness? Right? What defeats the darkness? The belief in something greater, the refusal to turn away from God, the refusal to let go of love, truth, and of light, right? That's exactly it. The refusal of love, truth, and light. We are in the moments of collapse. I'm sorry, we are. We are. Not just America, the entire world. And you feel it and you know it. And if you're here, you don't have any qualms about it. You know it. We are in the moments of collapse. The fall is coming, but it is not the end. It is the necessary destruction before the rebirth. So yes, we stand. Yes, we fight for what is right, but we do it with God in our hearts, love in our eyes, because if we fight from a place of anger, from a place of hate, we are only continuing the same cycle, just with a different voice yelling loudest. It's time to break the cycle. And if you would like for God to speak to you, I want you to remember of how that you can connect with God by not turning away from love, not turning away from light, not being afraid of the truth, not being afraid to stand in what's in the light, not being afraid to let the fires burn away that which is no longer serving you today anymore. And here's the thing. In this moment, in this exact moment, everyone has the ability to do that. If you're doing some bullshit in your life right now, if 5 minutes ago you smoked a bowl of crack cocaine, guess what? In this moment, you can throw it away and never touch it again, because you can change your life that quick. In a snap, you can change your life. You just have to be willing to recognize that you are of God, you are love, you are light, and you have to be able to forgive the sins of the human flesh and give yourself grace and stop and listen. If you're not hearing God, because God speaks to us in a million ways, right? How do you hear God? How does God speak to me? God speaks to me in meditation. He speaks to me in angel numbers. He speaks to me in channeled messages, because I have stopped and I have cleared my eyes and I have said, I'm going to do the hard thing, even when it is against the, there's things that there's times and there's places where it might affect my bottom line dollar. But guess what? Greed is not of God. Love is. And I know that if I lead with love, if I lead with light, if I lead with truth, if I allow only the things that are real to go forward with me in life, if I recognize my divinity, right? When you start recognizing music speaks. That's a good one. That is a phenomenal one. Music. Tell me how God speaks to you. I want to know how God speaks to you. I'm telling you through I'll say, I hope I'm doing the right thing. And then something will happen where I'm like, oh, God, make sure I knew I was doing the right thing. It's in signs. It's in symbology. And sometimes God will just say, hey, Tammy, here's what a message I have for you. And that comes out in journaling. But until you stop, take a breath, you sit in stillness. And I say all the time, prayer is when you go to God and ask him for things. Meditations where you sit and listen. I'm going to encourage every single one of you to take, it took us less than 3 minutes this morning to find our center, to find our breath. Go back to a breath work. Find yourself a 3-minute morning. It could be any time of the day, and progress is better than perfection. But understand that we're all imperfect humans, and not all of us are going to do everything right. But all I can do is give you some ways in which you might be able to use the information to do better, and that's up to you, right? And we all have our own walk, and we all have our own reality of how things are. And I am not here to tell you that my way is the only way. I've never said that. I do believe that I am of God, that you are of God, and that my messages today was brought to you from that divine wisdom. And I had a little hard time saying that. And my husband even says, will you stop comparing yourself to Bible people, important people from the Bible? I said, will you stop recognizing that Noah was just a man who they made fun of? He's a drunk who said the sky's falling, the rain's going to come, and nobody listened to him. What made, just because he's in the Bible and it happened, he was somebody's neighbor. His wife probably said to him, Moses, why do you think God is talking to you or not? No, you are not Moses, or Noah, you're not Moses. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so don't think that God can't work through and speak through you. You have divine power. Every single one of us have the ability to change the entire world every day for one person. And that person sometimes needs to be yourself. But every day you have the ability to share love, light, truth, honor, standing in your faith. Every day you have the ability to do that, right? And this is what Corinne says. What's scary is too many leaders that are using the exact same love and light and truth as a way to scare, but they're not using that. That's what they're not. They're not using love and light. They're using hellfire and damnation. Nobody is standing in any kind of pulpit with a Bible preaching hate your neighbor and being of God. They're not. They're not using love and light, right? They're not using love, light, or truth. They're not even doing that. They are blaspheming the name of God, and they are just honoring nothing more than themselves and all of those who choose to do that. So I'm going to encourage you today, if you're here, to stand in those things, right? To understand that you have the ability to live in love, to live in light, to live in truth. And that's all it takes. It's just recognizing the divine wisdom that has already been planted inside of you before the first molecule was made. You have the divinity within you. So why not me? Or why me? Because I stop, I listen, I walk through this world with a goal of being giving love, being a light, being truthful, being integrity, even when it's hard, even when it does not suit my physical, material, greedy. If I wanted to be materialistic business owner like this persona here, if it does not suit me. And I'm going to tell you the truth of the matter is, the more that I am able to stay in my practice of recognizing and honoring the part of me that is of God, the things that I want to emulate, the things that my integrity says, hey, I can't turn my back on it. Like, I've opened up something. I've awakened a piece of that God gene, or whatever you want to call it, to where I get so overly emotional around people who are not being of God, or the things that I feel are like, if I get into a room and the energy is just yucky and icky, it either makes me have an outburst that is outside of myself and is nasty, and I turn away from God to, like, I'm going to defend us here for a second, and I say something awful, and just my mouth just overrides my rear end, right? And I'm like, ooh, and I had that happen this week. I was not kind. I made fun of somebody. I was not kind. I was pissed, and it happens. And that is recognizing that I am also human, right? And that is what we have to understand. What is it? To err is human and to forgive is divine. And that doesn't mean outside of ourselves. And I had to spend some time it was probably why I was sick, because honestly, I went home yesterday and I was aggravated. Like, Corinne knows, I was like, like, everything was just, ugh. So last night before I went to bed, I went outside and I was like, let me shake off this energy. I had energy on me from earlier in the week that I had not settled and wrapped up and dealt with. And I got into my journal some more, and I gave grace, and I was like, you can't change what happened. What you can do is you can move forward doing the right things. And we all have those moments. The Gnostics believe that our bodies are like a trap, or like our prison of our soul. And until we learn to, are able to recognize God more than not, I think kind of the idea, like, we would then upcycle or enlightenment. So I'm still probably got a couple more lives to live on this planet for sure, right? But every day I try to do better than I did yesterday, and that's all you can do. That's also giving yourself divine grace and, having the wisdom to know that. So let's talk about journal prompts this week. I know I'm already a little bit over today. I don't normally like to do that, but it's been a minute, and this is a big one, right? So I do have some journal prompts for you. I am going to also pull a crystal affirmation card today. The universe is also telling me that I don't need to do that anymore, that I already am going to be given what I need. Like, this was a tool, and that I needed to trust my own intuition. So God gave me some, which means, like, I am working on egoic death, and the last couple of months have been big for me for that. And I have had to not be in the public eye to do that. There's a long way to go and a lot of things that I'm working on, but that's going to be something, like I said, for more of an in-person connection. So let's talk about our journal prompts for this week. If you're maybe not understanding, you want to get your own answers and you want to talk to God, here's a place to start. Write down in your journal, where have I been resisting divine wisdom? right? Where have you been resisting divine wisdom? Where are places that you know you're doing something that's not maybe of God, but you're still holding on to it because you're just not able to let go of it yet, right? And that's where I say we're resisting divine. Mine is with food and sugar. Like my body is my temple because I'm housing God, right? So I want to take good care of my body, which means putting good foods and clean water and things like that in my body. And I know that that's where I resist divine wisdom, is giving myself loving myself enough to maybe not eat 5 cupcakes in a week, maybe have one on my birthday. So that's for me is somewhere I've been resisting divine wisdom. Sometimes I have been avoiding conversations I need to have because truth, right? I need to stand in truth. I've been pussyfooting around things and like letting it bother me, and that's gonna make me not able as clear of a channel as I need to be because I'm holding on to something that is not of God. It is not of truth. It is not of light. It is something that I'm just kind of feeling rocking around in my head. Number 2, how do you recognize the divine in others? That's a good place to do that, right? What are the things that you see in others that maybe you recognize as divine? And then I think that's good because I look at that and then I start journaling through. I'm like, I wonder how they got, like, why do I see that? Because normally when you recognize divinity in others, you feel like you lack there. So it's a good place to start with, like, opening up your mind to be able to start recognizing, having a better gnosis, a knowledge of yourself. Number 3, what in my life needs to be burned away so that I can walk in truth? And I feel like once you answer 1 and 2, your 3 is going to be a lot better. And I think that this is an exercise in listening to God with your voice within you that is God, right? So those are some journal prompts for the week. I'm going to leave this for a second. If y'all want to screenshot this and put them in the group, that would be great. All right. And this week's affirmation. So I would love you to all to repeat these with me, if you don't mind, out loud in your head, and then claim it. So be it and so it is if you would like to claim it. Affirmations. I am open to divine wisdom. I am open to divine wisdom. I recognize the divine in myself and others. I see you, you see me. I think about Avatar when I think that. I see you, and it's more about like I see God in you. I recognize you. I see you. I recognize the divine in myself and others. And if you can see it in others, that number 2 of that journal prompt was really for you to recognize that sometimes what you see in others, you also have, and then you can put those things together. If you recognize that this is of God in somebody and you have that same trait, you start recognizing. And that's what I did. I started saying, like, who do I see as like someone I want to live up to be, or I want to emulate, or somebody who I feel like walks in it. And like, well, I do those things. Maybe, I can recognize my divinity and recognizing it in others. I align my mind, my body, and my soul with truth and love. And an alignment, I always say, is integrity. To me, it's about thinking, doing, and saying all the same things, and it being just what it is, right? So I align my mind, my body, and my soul with truth and love. And then here's the other affirmation so that you can start hearing God speak. And it's just as simple as saying it. I listen when God speaks. And I think that one is just as important to me as when I look in the mirror every day and say, I love you, Tammy. You are an amazing person, and the world is a better place because you are here. You are a good and faithful steward of the money and the opportunities that God has given within to me. And I listen when God speaks. Those are important words to say. Now, we are going to pull a crystal card because we do it every week. And it might be the last week we do it, to be honest, because God says you don't do it. These are for your affirmations and your journal prompts, and we can give you those now because you're listening. Ooh, that just jumped out. There's a bunch of them, so it wasn't a jumper like we thought. But I'm gonna go ahead and get these. All right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And our crystal affirmation card today is Moonstone. Ooh, beautiful moonstone. Live your purpose. Moonstone, live your purpose. Let's see what Moonstone has to say for us today, and then we're going to get off of here. I hope that I've not scared people off, or, and like God said, if you did, you did. They're not meant to be here. The things that are real will stay, right? The things that are real will stay. We're probably going to, let's see here. Moonstone. Moonstone. All right. Living your purpose. Life is a journey. We each have a unique calling to find our own way along a path to a more purposeful life. It is time to discover a deeper meaning within yourself and ensure the actions you take and the choices you make are, in fact, intentional and purposeful. How can you make a difference? What can you contribute? What is your legacy? Follow your heart as well as your conscience. Just like the moon waxes and wanes, you may feel like at times as though you're getting closer to and then further from your true purpose. When you know you walk on the path towards your highest purpose, you feel fulfilled each and every day. And I love that because I feel like this is very resonates today, is understanding that I have felt so connected and so awoken in my spirituality and my God gene, or whatever you want to call it, my God spark. And then I have felt so divided from it. And that is so freaking normal, y'all. Healing and enlightenment is not not this, right? It is definitely this. And you go on tangents and things happen and it's what it is. But it is about understanding that getting back on the path just means you just step back onto the path. That you have the ability at any moment to change your life, to get back in your path, to walk and live your soul's purpose. The core questions here are you who you want to be? What are your intentions for yourself? What areas of your life are ripe for transformation? Right? Affirm, I am committed to my transformation. Today, take one action, no matter how small, that's in service of the goals you have for yourself. One action, micro moves. One action can change the whole trajectory of your life. Not your life, your day at least, right? So I want to thank everybody for tuning in today. I appreciate you all much. The message I'm leaving you with today is that God is speaking to every single person here, me to you. And again, why not me? Why not you? He is speaking to both of us. The messages from God are nothing that is reserved for anybody in a position of power. God speaks to every single one of us. You just have to listen. You just have to listen and recognize that you have divinity within you and that God is always speaking to you. So that is Sunday's sermon, March 16th, 2025. Why not me and why not you? We're going to end this like we always do. It was a big one today. I feel a lot of energy kind of moving through. I love all the amens. Corinne's, I'm going to read her little message here before we go, just because I want to, if you have any questions, anything y'all want to ask before I get off here, do so right now in the comments. While I'm reading this, gives you time to type something up if you want to touch on something or contribute something. I don't want to take your opportunity away to say something. Corinne says, sitting on my porch, as soon as you said recognize divine wisdom, thunder rolled by, feeling the power all around me. But for real, lately, sister has been speaking loudly. I can feel the love from you all. I'm sending it back. I mean, come on, Moonstone. It was meant to be. Love you. Love you too. Norma Jean says, grateful fed in Farmville. I love you too, Norma Jean. I see Corinne's amen up here. Heather says that images and signs, I ask for them out loud. Yes, sometimes you have to ask out loud. Heather also says, thank you. I miss you so bad. We are together in spirit. Yeah, so we're going to start doing some more togetherness things. Kristen says, wonderful message. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for being here and sharing space. I want to be able to be in contact with everybody more and more and more. And I'm hopefully being able to carve time out to really work on that. There's a lot of big energy coming and a lot of things that are going to happen or unfold. And I'd love to be able to share space with each of you and we can work together to make sure that we have those connections before that happens. But we're going to do the best we can do. I want to say thank you again for watching, and we're going to end this live like we always end our lives, with a little peace, a little love, and a little feast, y'all. As always, stay elevated, and I love you. And I thought I had that up here. Maybe I don't. And I love you, and I'll see you next time. Until then, I'm Tammy, and have a good